like, why did it have to happen? And it's just impossible to answer those questions as mere mortals, Emily. Thank you for being here with us and for watching and for supporting. And we love you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Megan. Praying for you and everyone involved.
Likewise. We're going to turn now to Father Mike Schmitz. You may know him from A Bible in a Year. He's been on the program before, and our audience absolutely adores you, Father. Thank you for being back, a Catholic priest based in Minneapolis or Minnesota, out in Bozeman, right? Yeah. Thank you for being here so much. Please help us understand. Like, I don't know how to process it.
Yeah. No, I know that you and Charlie have spent time together, and my first thought when they just asked if I could be here, I just was like, I can't imagine. I imagine that Megan is going through it right now. And so, I mean, I'm so many people, so many of us. But I know that particularly, you have been in the trenches with him, and you have had so many conversations that, probably off screen as many or more than we've seen on screen. And so just, know of not only my prayers for him and for his family, but also for you and for every other person who has loved him and has been touched by his life. So just know that, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's like, I don't know, is it a fool's errand to try to make sense of something like this?
Well, yes and no. I mean, that there's that sense of, I think your previous guest had pointed out, that for Christians, this is, we know that we live in a broken world, and we know that we have this freedom to be able to do horrible, horrible things to each other, and it's not what God wants. And so to get to that point where we say, how do you make sense of this? Is that here's what we believe. I believe that God is good. He made this world good. But then, simply put, with our freedom, we chose to break the world. And we continue to choose to break the world, even though God continues to break into it. I mean, just think about Charlie's life as an example. What is the example? The example is that he had come to this place of knowledge of and faith in the goodness of God in a broken world. And what is the symbol of Christianity? I mean, what's the symbol of Christianity? As you might know, this weekend, this upcoming Sunday, we celebrate this thing called the Feast of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross. And the symbol of Christianity, which is the symbol of the West, is what? Is a cross. And that sense of, like, the cross is the contradiction, right? It's the contradiction. And I think the Catechism says it like this. It says there's no part of the passion of Christ. There's no part of his life, death, and resurrection that is not in some way God's attempt to answer why suffering. And so, and we have to know this. We have to know that faith that Charlie has in that God, the God who is broken into this broken world, doesn't take the pain away, doesn't take the grief away, doesn't undo his tragic murder. But hopefully, in some ways, we can console him and his family by saying, okay, but I'm going to choose to trust in that God as well.
I know, in the same way I was saying, there's no way Charlie would want a single pundit to hold back on their commentary now. No way. That he would certainly not want this to encourage a crisis of faith. I mean, right. He absolutely would not want to see that. And yet, I feel so angry. I was talking to my guests earlier, and my dear friend Mark Halpern was saying, we have to try to find a way to react in love, and come together, like as a country, come together. And I was just honest, saying, it makes perfect sense, and I know he's right, but right now all I feel is deep anger. And I know I'm not alone. And how do you process that, right? That's not a healthy emotion. It's not something you should stay mired in. It corrodes you from the inside. And yet I know millions of people are feeling it.
Well, I think the anger is the proper response. Really, when it comes down to it, anger is the proper response. That there is a time for everything. And grief as well as anger. There's time for acceptance and all those other pieces of moving forward. But anger is the proper response. I mean, to realize that this is, I mean, here, let's use Jesus as our example. There were times when Jesus saw injustice, where Jesus saw evil, and he didn't like, oh, okay, that's too bad. He was angered. I mean, there's times where people refuse to reach out or refuse to say it was good to reach out to help the helpless. And Jesus, it says very clearly in the scriptures, Jesus looked at them with anger. And there's a piece of that that's like, okay, if I can look at evil and I can look at suffering, if I can look at death and senseless, tragic death, like 2 weeks ago, the shooting in Minneapolis and now the shooting in Utah, to be able to look at that and not experience anger is to have our metric off. That's to have our barometer off. That the proper human response to evil is anger, because I would say God's response to evil is anger. And we say it in many ways.
How do we keep that away from us? You know, how do we, I think, I look at my kids, I think, I don't want these devils near them. I don't want the devil near them. I don't want evil coming for them. You know, you and I talked, I've thought about it a million times, Father. We talked when you were on about how does one get into heaven? Yeah. And is it just, you know, I'm a good person, I'm, you know, do unto others. And you said, no, it is not just that, you know, that Jesus, God expects you to work to get in. You have to be actively doing good deeds. You have to actively be thinking about how to advance his word and live in harmony with him. And yes, I want to do all that. Right now, I also want vengeance. I'm not sure that's in line. I really want to hurt whoever did it. I want them to suffer. Not sure that's in line. And then I also want to do whatever I have to do to keep the devil away from the next one, and certainly from all the people I love.
Yeah, and that's why anger can be a positive emotion. C.S. Lewis writes about this. He says that sometimes we look at anger or violence or fighting as the wrong thing. No, we need to tamp that down. Well, no, sometimes you need to fight for the right thing. So when William Wilberforce saw slavery, he was angered by this, not merely grieved, but also angered. And that grief, but also that anger, moved him to do positive things. And so you and I know this. We know that anger indulged can become vengeance. It also can become something even worse, which is resentment and bitterness. And we know that so anger, I would say it like this: anger is an active emotion. Resentment is when things settle. What I mean by that is
you have to get through anger. You have to process anger.
And it can move, right? The anger can move us to do good. Anger can move us to say, this is wrong, and I need you to do something about this. Like for you to be able to say, I need to go on the air, and we need to talk about this so that others don't experience this, so that people know that they're not alone. So we can rally and say, okay, you guys, how would Charlie want us to respond to this? Like that, to use that anger to move forward, to do good, as opposed to, I always think of resentment as like, anger is still the like quicksand, or it's like concrete that is still, you can still move it. But resentment is like when I set that, and now I've hardened my heart towards a certain group of people, towards a certain individual. I've hardened my heart to the world. I've hardened my heart to God. So we can't afford to go into resentment, but we have to know how to choose what to do with our anger. And so your response of anger, it would be a defect of humanity to not experience anger.
Well, then I'm human. I'm definitely human. I'll tell you, my priest just texted me and said in the closing, reminded me of the Gospel of John 1:5, saying, light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Mm-hmm. Light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. He was a light. There's no question about that. But man, there's a lot of darkness in the world right now. That's for sure. I have a feeling your pews are going to be even extra filled this Sunday, Father. I know you always have a standing room only, but they're going to flock in great numbers, because I think Christians are hurting right now. I think we're losing too many of ours. You know, like the kids in Minneapolis, now Charlie. Like, you know, we don't want to see ours shut down for standing up for core Catholic beliefs. You know, like children aren't born in the wrong body, and we shouldn't be divided by race. These are very, very core, understandable, you know, non-controversial in a normal world beliefs. Mm.
Well, and also, what did Charlie say so many times? He said, why does he go on campus? Why did he go to Utah? Why does he go to any campus? He says, because when people stop talking, then they start becoming violent. And so even the fact that he gave witness to the reality that we can fight, but we fight with debate over debate. Or not over debate, we fight through debate, right? We fight with other words, we can argue. And again, that sense of going back to this, that what would he say? When we stop talking, then we devolve into either we separate ourselves completely, or all we have is violence. And he did not want either of those two to be a reality. And that's why I think it's really important, again, for your show to exist, for us to continue to have our doors open in the church and to be able to say, okay, let's continue to engage these big questions, because we have to stand for truth, and we have to stand for people who, when people, in the clip you just showed, the people who changed their mind when Charlie went to a campus, a lot of times what he did was, he treated them with respect. Yes, there are some times when there were some harsh words towards each other. Just because that's a normal conversation we sometimes fall into. But that sense of, minds were changed because they didn't realize. They didn't realize what they didn't know. And to be able to care enough for someone to share something with them and help lead them. So we believe, as you know this, in the corporal works of mercy. That comes from Matthew chapter 25. I was hungry, you fed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. There's also a spiritual works of mercy. And one of those spiritual works of mercy is instructing the ignorant, or helping those who don't know come to know. And yeah, Charlie did not stop trying to help people come to know. And if they disagreed with him, what happened? They walked away, and everyone was still intact. They walked away and they had a discussion, and they were treated like a human being. And that's a model to move forward.
I'll hold on to that. Father, thank you. Thank you so much for everything Absolutely. You do, not just for today.
Praying for you.
Charlie tweeted out on Saturday, Jesus defeated death so you can live. On Saturday, Jesus defeated death so you can live. That's what he did. That's what he wants us all to do. That's what we will do. There's no question we will go on and we will continue our messaging. But it's going to hurt. This one's going to hurt. I told you about President Trump's statement. Joe Biden, to his credit, also tweeted out, there is no place in our country for this kind of violence. It must end now. Jill and I are praying for Charlie Kirk's family and loved ones. It's a sweet gesture. Ben Shapiro, too, just tweeted something out. He's been under threat, too. Poor Ben. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Why? Why does Ben have to have so many security guards? He came here to the studio on Monday. I think it was a week ago. Monday. And the poor guy has to walk around with so much security because why again? Why? Because he comments on the news and says things people find controversial, but all of which are mainstream opinions on the right, because he's a Jew who's outspoken in favor of Israel. What? This is where we're going. This is what he wrote. Like all of you, I'm utterly stunned and heartbroken and sick to my soul today. It is unimaginable to write these words. I met Charlie Kirk when he was 18 years old. A young man, so eager and determined that I immediately turned to a friend and said, this kid is going to be the head of the RNC one day. Charlie became even bigger and more important than that. It was a privilege to watch the principled man stand up for his beliefs and create the single most important conservative political organization in America. Totally right. But more importantly, Charlie was a good man, a man who believed in right and wrong, who stood by his biblical values. All of us will miss him, and I can't imagine the pain of his beautiful young family, and we must all pray for them. And we must pick up the baton where Charlie left it, fighting for the things he believed in so passionately. And we must fight for a better America, an America where good people can speak truth and debate passionately without fear of a bullet. I weep for Charlie's family, and I weep for my country today. Most of all, I weep for Charlie. It's hard. It's really hard. Everyone's feeling it. Joe Biden, Donald Trump agree on very little things. But on the loss of this great American patriot, they agree. And speaking of great American patriots, Vivek Ramaswamy joins us now. He's running for governor of Ohio, and he also has been out on the trail with Charlie, who I know is a dear friend. He's joining us by phone. Vivek, this is really rough, and I know it's rough on you personally. How are you processing this?
I mean, we're devastated, Megan. I'm in Northwest Ohio. I was traveling from my home in Columbus when we heard the news, but we are devastated. Just got off the phone with my wife. I was with Charlie here just 2 weeks ago here in Ohio, It actually wasn't something, broadly broadcasted, but we had some one-on-one time together, had a real heart-to-heart conversation when he was here. And even 2 days ago, was talking to him like I'm talking to you now. Spent a good part of the last year together, traveling the country, doing actually events like the one he was doing today. Intense, on college campuses. And it makes you think about, what did he do that was so wrong, that earned him this fate? It was to foster open conversations with young people who were hungry to figure out what they believed. And that's what he did. And I think more than anybody else I know, I really mean it when I say this, I think more than anybody else I know, he was committed to talking to people who disagreed with him, to do it openly. That was his ultimate sin. It turns out, in the twisted world we live in today. And, God blessed him with immense gifts that rarely a person might have. And what I love about Charlie is that he was not afraid to use those gifts to do what he felt was right for his country. He knew the risks he was taking. I mean, he had 2 kids. They're a little younger than mine, 2 years apart. I think around 3 and 1.
Yeah.
Worst kid's age. And he did it. I mean, those kids are going to grow up without a great father. They were kids to a great father, a great man, a great American, and they're going to grow up without him. But he took those risks for those kids so they could grow up in a country that he believed in.
Yeah. I was just talking about this. I just was talking about this the other day. It was Graham Linehan, the Irish citizen who got arrested in the UK for tweets on the trans issue. Mm-hmm. And he's paid a dear price for his own outspokenness on controversial issues. And he said, not in the trite way, Vivek, but like in the way that really struck me. He said, I speak up for my daughter because she can't. And he meant more than just she's too young to really understand these issues and process them. He meant there's fear, and that our young people today really, they're not in a position like you are, like I am, like Charlie was, to risk professional reputation or blowback or cancellation, what have you. By but no one's factoring that in, right? Like that's, even as a politician now, you must have seen your risk profile go up, but do you really think your life is on the line when you're out there talking? As a public figure, I've always known it's a risk, but it never really felt like a real one.
Not until the last year. Not until the last year. But I think that we've taken a dark and twisted turn in the country where this has become normalized. If this were shocking, this would be bad enough if this were an event, Megan. If this were utterly shocking that none of us saw this coming, that alone would be horrific enough. And yet the only thing more horrific is that actually it's not that shocking. Charlie saw it coming. He talked about the culture of political assassination at a time where people thought he was hyperbolic for saying so. Right? And the ultimate devastating irony, it was his clarity of vision that he ended up suffering the consequence of what he saw for our country. Is it that surprising when you have 2 assassination attempts on our current U.S. president, which in his case, thank God, he didn't suffer the same fate. But I think the thing we got to understand and wrap our head around here, I think today is, there's going to be a long conversation to go around how we turn around the policy, the culture, the environment in the country where we get back to the America you and I know and love, where we can talk to each other, disagree vehemently, have the space to disagree vehemently, but still do so with the confidence that we're going to do so safely and with mutual respect and dignity for human life. We're going to get back there. But, today, just in this moment, I mostly just want to remember a great man who's, born only so often as somebody with Charlie's talent and Charlie's gifts. And in 30 plus years, 31 years on this earth, he was able to, in a shorter time than most are given, accomplish more than most do. And I just pray for his kids that they're able to grow up. I know they have a wonderful mother as well, who's one of the strongest people out there. I can only imagine what she's going through, but
Oh God,
I hope those kids grow up
his
and
mom.
yeah, I mean, imagine. And I don't know this for sure, Megan, but I mean, we have a lot of mutual friends and whatnot. But from what I heard and understand, they were around there today. I mean, imagine I mean, the kids are young. They're 3 and 1, and I feel for them. But imagine her and what position she's in. Now having to raise
God.
those 2 kids. And it wasn't just Charlie taking the risks. He knew the risks he was taking, but his family knew it. She knew it too. And they did it together anyway because they believed in doing their part, whether you would agree with them or not. They believed earnestly and in their deepest faith that they were doing their part to create that country for their kids. And today paid the price of an ultimate sacrifice that, at least in Charlie's case, he didn't discount that. He wasn't blind to it. He talked about it as a risk.
Mm-hmm.
And, today, at least we should, for our country, remember a great patriot who in many ways put his life on the line today, literally, to speak what he saw as true and good and virtuous and right for the nation he loved. And I hope, for his sake and for ours, that his kids are able to grow up in a country that moves on from this sick culture of violent retribution. Let's just say at some point we're done with it. And if it isn't now, I don't know when it'll ever be. And so
people like you are you're the answer. You're the answer. You out there on this is not a political ad. This is not I'm not involved in the Ohio race. I've watched you. When people disagreed with you on the campaign trail, you opened your door to them. You walked over to them in friendship. You extended a hand. You wanted to hear them out. You were kind. You were loving. You were gentle. What a model, Vivek. It's so hard to do when we're so divided and we're so angry at each other over these issues, which are important. And when you are subjected to as many, negative press pieces and people harassing you on the campaign trail, it's even harder to find that within you. But you're kind of leading by example these days.
Well, one of the few people I was able to do it with was Charlie. I mean, we traveled the entire country, kind of tag teaming. We each had our own style. It was slightly different, but it was more fun that way. And we would, kind of stylistic tag team around the country, talking to these young Americans and these young patriots, and many of whom disagreed with us. And he and I mean, we would, ride a car together, take a walk together, ride a plane together, and we'd joke around about, different interactions. And there's one case, he still was one of his favorite people coming out of, I forget which campus we were on. It was somewhere in Pennsylvania. And, it was some girl with dyed hair who was screaming at him, who he still loved the interaction that he had with her. He was able to joke around about it and still care about having one country left at the end of it. And, there weren't that many of us. There aren't that many of us, Megan, who are willing to do that. And I think we lost one of our greats today. And as sad as I am for Charlie, I'm even sadder for his family, and I'm sadder still for our country that this is where we are. And I don't think that we can just, say the usual pieties and then move on and behave the same way tomorrow. I think there's going to be, I feel it right now. I feel it. I mean, there's a choice in how we react to this. And, there's a side of me, most of me now, that's furious, that's angry.
Yep.
But I think that there's also an element in all of us that hopes that we're just done with this. We're moving on past this dark chapter in our history. We've gone like, what, a 12-and-a-half-month period now? 12-month period where we've had 2 assassination attempts on a president. Now we're taking out one of the most important figures in the political youth movement, let alone in the conservative movement. Enough. We're done with this. And I do think that we would be justified, perhaps, in a short-term sense in, adopting the kind of rhetoric that Charlie was himself the subject of, that who knows what the circumstances here, we don't have the facts, but you could imagine at least would motivate someone to act in a horrific way. But, I think the best of what Charlie was trying to do and the best of what I hope we can do for our country aspires to more than just fighting, fire with fire. I hope we can fight fire with water, which might be the harder thing to do.
Yeah, well said. I mean, you talk about what a consequential figure he became. I'm just watching my producer text chain here, which has got all the latest news. Joe Biden has weighed in. Donald Trump has weighed in. Donald Trump has ordered the flags to half staff in memoriam of Charlie. I mean, I don't remember the last time. And here's a picture of the White House flag atop the White House at half staff now. By orders of the president, we'll be lowering ours momentarily. I don't remember the last time we've done that for a civilian, not a world leader. He'll do it sometimes in the wake of mass shootings, but for an individual, it's, I think, rare. Barack Obama, too, now weighing in as follows. We don't yet know what motivated the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk, but this kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy. Michelle and I will be praying for Charlie's family tonight, especially his wife, Erica, and their 2 young children. That's what we need. I say bravo to Barack Obama and to Joe Biden and to Donald Trump, who understand, Vivek, in these moments, there's something bigger happening. There's something really profound afoot today that's more than partisan bickering, even though we're angry, even though we want vengeance against the man who did it. Like, the truly good, like in our hearts and our souls, good Americans have to unite in standing against this sort of political violence. Even if we're going to fight about the political issues the very next day, those people who understand how vile this is and who are able to check their politics and hold hands in solidarity against this must do it. And that's why I accept those hands of friendship.
That's who we are.
Stand with them.
That's who we are. That's who we are as a people. It's who we've been. We've lost our way, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And I would never wish for a tragedy. What's required to wake us up. But if a tragedy, and for me, it's not just a national tragedy, it's a loss of a friend and somebody who's just personally really dear to me. Let something come for the country that he fought for. And he wasn't just a civilian, he was more than that. And I think we can honor him, and we can honor, honestly, our country, the truth of our country, as opposed to this alternative, bastardized version of it that we've suffered for this short period of our history we've been in. We can revive our true country by being a place where, look, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, yourself, myself, and everyone in between can agree that we're a place where we respect life, where we respect the lives and the dignity of our fellow citizens and our neighbors, that we can disagree like hell at times and still, ideally, we'll get together at the dinner table at the end of it and call ourselves still citizens of the greatest nation known to the history of mankind. That's who we are. That's what Charlie Kirk saw. And I hope that is what his life and now, tragically, his death can cause us to pause and remember and revive. And that's the best we can do today. So, anyway, Megan, thanks for doing what you're doing. And I know it's not easy for you either. I tried to resist your
you said, I'm not sure I can do it. I said, none of us are doing well. Like, we're all letting it hang out. So thank you for joining. I know it's a challenge, and I really appreciate it, Vivek. All my love to you.
Take care. Thank you, Megan.
One of the things I loved about Charlie, in addition to everything else that we've discussed, was that he was more than just somebody who would comment, still getting used to the past tense, on the news and, articulate his viewpoints, and my own for that matter, on so many issues so effectively and compellingly. But he also wasn't afraid to talk about life and relationships and a man and a woman and how to be a good dad, like all those things. He knew that his viewpoints were important, that his opinions on those things mattered to young people listening to him. And he did not waste that opportunity. When he was on, was it 2 weeks ago? It was very recently. I played for him a clip that I had seen of him online that I loved. I loved. He went on this smaller podcast and something about coffee in the morning. I can't remember, but forgive me, those guys. I did say it on the show. And they got into the subject of paying on the first date and who should pay. And we re-queued it up. Here it is.
Women want to be they want to be taken care of. I know this is like super provocative, but like deep down, they want a man to be able to provide for them financially.
Should a man pay on the first date?
100%. Like, what kind of a wuss beta male is splitting the check? But like, who are you? It's like, I'm just sorry. It's I would go into debt and like scrub dishes before a woman paid for it.
I split the check quite a lot.
So I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend you. You guys are great. That's incomprehensible to me. I think that's...
To me, I thought it was a great financial decision.
So from your prism, I totally get that. And like, you have really good financial discipline. I'm sorry. Like, I would be so humiliated if I find that to be like the greatest beta male, like humiliation.
To save money?
To like the idea that a woman that you're trying to court. Now, if it's like a friend thing
as a first date, you don't even know if she's like
matter.
The qualities
it does not matter. I'm sorry. By the way, that money you save is not worth the honor that you compromise.
It is such a big deal.
It's a massive deal.
The money you save is not worth the honor that you compromise. What a gem. How does he come up with that stuff? It was more than 2 weeks ago. It was August 6th. And at that point, he had just a little over a month left to live when we played that on my show, and we laughed about it together. You know, none of us knows how long we have. You lose friends, you lose family. It happens in slow, gradual ways, and it can happen suddenly and in horrific ways. And I always come back to the same place, and you guys have heard me say it, you know, the things that really matter in your life are within 15 feet of you. And those are the things that you should lean into, and those are the things that Charlie leaned into too. He loved getting out there on the road and going to college campuses. He loved coming on camera. He loved debating with people. He loved coming on our show and doing his show and doing the Turning Point events, which are so special and so influential and important. But he loved his family more than anything. He loved God. And that's what we should need to do. That's all we should do tonight. Lower your flag to half staff. Doug just texted me. Ours is down already. And hug your children and hug your spouse. And go to church this weekend or temple or synagogue or mosque, whatever you do. Say a prayer for everyone who's suffering because of Charlie's death, especially his family. And then we must move forward with priorities in place, with love front and center in our lives and connection and not too much time away from those who matter to us, right? Like have the family dinner, move things around to make it happen. Don't prioritize only your work. Make sure that valve gets some liquid in it, you know, fill up all of these valves and then move forward. You can't live in fear. He wouldn't have wanted that. He certainly didn't do that. You can't allow yourself to be consumed by anger. As Father Mike Schmidt said, anger is appropriate and we will feel it and it is righteous anger. But you can't stay mired in it for too long or you cannot function. You know, I said to my daughter, I've said to my daughter, who's of course, you know, very empathetic because she's a teenage girl, when other things happen, don't take on every upset as your own. You know, don't take on every tragedy that you see in the news or around you as if it's personal, because it'll break your heart. Well, our hearts are broken right now. And for some of us and many of us, it does feel personal, this loss. So we need a time to grieve, and we need a time then to feel really angry. And then we need to move through those emotions and do something about it. Not violence, not ruining any commentator's life. You know, for what it's worth, I know Van Jones a little. And I told you before, I wasn't blaming Van Jones and talking about that soundbite. I was trying to set the stage for what Charlie was doing this week. He's devastated too. Van's a good man. He's devastated too. So in any event, but the perpetrator should be held to account to the fullest extent possible under the law. And then we must take an honest look at what motivated him. I'm assuming it was a him. What was it? Was it just some nutcase? If it was a nutcase, we are not going to skip by yet another tragedy without institutionalization. I will go. I pledge to go to the White House myself and talk directly to the president about it. I promise you that's what I will do. But what is it? We need to know what it is. And to know what it is, we need to catch the person. So it's all hands on deck. If you know anything, if you have any reason to believe it's someone you may know, or you've heard something, or you're in Utah, we have a lot of fans out there, contact the FBI. I have no doubt that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino will be all over this. We need to catch the person, and we need to find the motivation. We need to punish the person, and we need to punish the people who created the motivation, the circumstances that led this person to think he probably could walk into an arena and take the innocent life of a good and decent man. That's it. I'll give you the last news update before we sign off. Utah Valley University officials encouraged students who are still on campus or who had taken shelter in university buildings after the shooting to call for a police escort. Quote, "Police will come and escort you out of the building," wrote the university on social media. The kids there are still not safe. They don't know who committed this crime, and we must know. And I have faith in the law enforcement to find out. God bless all of you. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for making this show possible. Thank you for loving us. Really, thank you for loving us and making me feel loved and valued in this job that I do. I know Charlie felt that too. Gratitude toward his audience for giving him an extraordinary life. Vivek is right. What he did in 31 years so far surpasses what most people accomplish in a full and lengthy lifetime. Something about which his family can be very proud. I'm sure his mother, I didn't realize his mom was still around, but it makes sense. He's young, can be very proud. And when his kids are old enough, they will get to know their father, as Emily points out, through videos and through the rest of us who will make sure that he goes on living. That's how all of our loved ones go on living, through our memories and when we share them. All my love to all of you, all my gratitude as well. We'll see you again tomorrow on The Megyn Kelly Show.